We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Business Express. It's time to talk about everything business, talk about the naira, the pounds, and yes, throwing the dollar there to the greenback. Let's see what it's looking like. So today's conversation will get everyone talking. So get this number very handy now. 0809 We'll read your WhatsApp messages there as we make welcome our special guest this morning, Oladele, the founder, the Money Wheat Club. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you for asking. And well, it's looking like an Ashebi day of, well, black this morning. I don't know how you got that memo. But let's pick up the conversation from this angle and see where the BDCs is looking like moving to display their black market, that's the FX rates. Are these guys coming out of the closet eventually? When we match this against the backdrop of the last time, they said, look, we don't even want to see you guys around.
Yes, so I would say that they are trying to create a space, an official space for themselves in the economy, which is why they're going on this route. Their plan or their proposition is to publish black market rates on their websites, on online platforms and all, which I don't know. I think it pushes us back to, or brings us back to the time when the central bank was so against it, and they felt that it was part of the reason why the currency was sliding, So coming back here, even at this time when currency is seriously sliding, I'm not sure if it's good timing, but that's where we are. Like, let's see if it gets approved.
But this in itself, like you in your submission, you talked about, this at that point was what got a certain platform known as Aboki sort of its fingers burnt, and the CBN would not even want to hear about it in the first place. But what sort of confidence are these guys getting to want to come up with it? Because one, why are we in the first place living in denial when we know these guys, they exist?
Well, nobody really said they did not exist. The fact is, in a proper situation, they're supposed to work in hand with the official channels. In fact, in other societies, the BDCs are an official channel, meaning that you didn't have to walk into a bank to convert from pound to dollar. You go to a bureau de change, like that's the normal thing, right? And they are around town. So that's where they are. So they haven't necessarily been illegal, right? But I think what it is that in those societies, there's simply no difference between what the bank is selling and what the BDC is selling. It's just in terms of costs. So some people charge more than others in terms of their fees and stuff. And that's the difference. But here we have a challenge that the BDC is a parallel market. That is the real issue. So it's not about being a BDC, it's about the fact that you are running a parallel FX market to the official market. Now, doing something like this and getting the approval for it is just almost saying that we are approving that mismatch. We are solidifying that mismatch or making it official.
So just as a follow-up, it seemed like yesterday the official rate closed at 878 naira to the US dollar, but there is no official recognition of the black market rate, which is around 1,375 naira to the US dollar. What is the significance of this publicly acknowledging this, dual rates as we can see now?
So I just think it just solidifies the confusion, right? Because one of the things that as politicians, our leaders have been trying to do is to attract offshore investments. So the question for an offshore investor is which price am I coming in at, right? Why should I go at 870? Why should I come in at 878 when there's somebody that is already buying at 1,003? Right? So those are kind of things that investors consider, and they're not yet sure it is time to come into this market. So officially acknowledging the prices, the different pricing, I'm not sure. Well, the fact is this, it's not much about officially acknowledging the price. It's more about how do we really bring this together? Because there have been times when there's no difference between buying from BDC and buying from the bank. Right, there have been times when I can go to a BDC, I can go to a bank. There's no difference, and that's the way it should be. So maybe that's even the focus, as against saying, why are we acknowledging this market? The question is, why is there such a huge gap? And how can we fill that gap?
No, I can't miss that point where there was a time. Was there really a time where you could there wasn't really much difference? You could.
In 2020, not so far.
Whoa.
Yes, January 2020 was
Okay.
360 on both sides, 360,
Wow.
361. It was, and we had that for a while. So it's not anything out of the ordinary. And the BDCs were there and they were still making money. They were fine. And so if a BDC wanted to publish at that time, it would have been fine.
Hashtag bring back those good old days. That's what it's looking like. But that takes us to this tag of Nigeria being a dollarized economy. Would you subscribe to it?
In terms of saying that, is it really a dollarized economy? No, I do not think it's a dollarized economy. I think that we are somewhat on the way there. But if you also consider the general economic situation, how many people really have dollars? It's only a select few. So if we are 170 million or 200 million, depending on what number you decide to use, and 5 million use, and you may not even be up to 5 million, 2 million have dollars, ready access to dollars and are trading in that currency. You really can't see that the currency is dollarized. There's not much that you are doing that you are. I mean, when you say country is dollarized, you are saying that you can trade in dollars. Somebody will receive money, receive dollars in exchange for payments. How many of those, apart from maybe some properties, which the central bank has clamped down on, but how many transactions really can you say you want to pay for in Nigeria and you pay in dollars? So we're not yet dollarized economy.
So which in the part, this is look like a good place. I see messages piling up already. So I'd like to just quickly let the numbers out because it seemed like there will be a lot of conversation around these BDCs wanting to begin to publish their rates now. And so that in itself speaks of some persons will say openness, but let's see, 0809 4440981 will be where we like to read the messages. Now, off of the fact that you say Nigeria would not really pass off for a dollarized economy because not much of these transactions are done in dollars. But this, let's use an example of Argentina. They've got a new president in town, Javier Milei, who's saying that, look, he wants to abandon the Argentine peso and switch over to the US dollar. What do you make of this? And can we also, maybe this template might work for Nigeria?
Your second answer, no, we must not. But the thing about it, when you do something like that, while it might sound logical and say, okay, since we are chasing the dollar, why don't you just move to that currency? What you've actually done is that you have lost control of your economy. That is it. So you are sitting in Argentina, but whatever is happening in America is just coming straight to you. Bam. And then guess what? You don't have the structures, you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the social systems that America has to absorb what's happening in their country. If something is going wrong, they can say they want to pump in money, they can say they want to support their people. You don't. So the fact that you are moving from your own currency to the US dollar, it's simply just exposing yourself. You can't control your economy. You are not in control of your economy. So it's not something that as a sovereign state you should adopt, because number one, you can't print the currency, right? Every dollar that is going to be passed around Argentina has to come from America, right? Even just that logistics of it is mind-blowing, right? And even from the fact that if there's any form of trade war, any form of challenge with America, all they just need to do is say that they're not supplying you with dollars anymore. Shut down your bank account in their country, because you know what happens is that when you have reserves, your account is actually in a US bank, and then you now match it in your own bank in your country. So they'll just shut that down and you're done. So you can't do that. It's a security risk.
See, I've been wondering why you had to found the Money With Club, but I think I got my answer now from the position you're taking right now. You really just give us something, Money With 101. Thanks for that. And we didn't even pay for it. So this also leads us now to the next conversation. Somewhere we had you last week and you discuss issues, savings and investment options. Some persons didn't come to class on that day. Probably their vehicles got stuck, their radio somewhere. I don't know, but they didn't get signal. So let's just go back and do a refresher for them, for those who missed. How should the dollar factor in savings and investment portfolios work for Nigerians?
So I would say that it should be, if you are okay, there's one part. Number one, if you are talking about saving and investing, it means that you've gotten past I need to eat. So if you've not gotten past, I need to eat, I need to survive, then first of all, let's figure that out. Let's put that aside. Now, if you've gotten past that and you're at a point where you want to start saving and investing, thank God. But what you need to do is that you need to consider, yes, dollar should be part of your investment portfolio, but it shouldn't be all. Number one, the fact is a lot of people, when they say they're investing in dollar, all they do is that they just buy the dollar and keep in their account or keep under their pillow, whichever one applies. Now, the fact is there's also inflation in America. What that means is that if you bought a bag last year for $1, right now it's probably $1.30. So the fact that you are buying dollars is not an investment in itself, right? You actually have to find investment opportunities that would give you value in USD. If not, you might as well just go and do our stock market, because our stock market is on fire. If you're not there, you're missing out, right? So so if you're thinking about, you have to think about it from a proper investment perspective, not just from I'm converting cash and I'm holding it. Also bearing in mind that as we're all buying dollar, we are all digging our own, you're digging the floor you're standing on, right? So you have to be aware of that and make sure that you are not just speculating, it's actually tied to a real transaction as against just buying dollar for dollar's sake.
We've got one more item on your trade this morning, but before we get to that, you talked about digging. So I'd like us to dredge up one more issue you mentioned earlier on, that the issue why countries should not adopt the US dollar. But that in itself, for someone listening, would be raising questions of there are different kinds of dollars. We've got the Liberian dollar, the Australian dollar, and so in itself, isn't Zimbabwean dollar. So that in itself, you don't need the US dollar for that doesn't need to be printed from the US. Can you relate to that and speak to it?
So for example, Canadian dollar is not US dollar.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
only one US dollar. If
All
he's
right.
saying he's moving to US dollar, there's only one, and it's printed in America. Canadian dollar is printed in Canada.
Okay.
It just has dollar behind it. Maybe we should go and check the history of why they use dollar,
Okay.
right? But nah, it's different.
So we got that out of the way. So let's just do the final one item waiting for you. What does Nigeria need to do to bring in more dollar liquidity at this time?
So I was having this conversation a few days ago, and there are two parts to it. One is that yes, we need to improve our production, we need to start exporting, and things like that. There's other parts where there's a lack of confidence in the currency. For example, I just talked about the offshore investor. The stock market in Nigeria is undervalued based on our current exchange rates, meaning that there are banks that are listed both in Nigeria and in the UK. If you convert it at the exchange rates and pricing here, you know that you should be selling it abroad and coming to buy here, meaning that offshore investors should be coming in. But what are they saying? They are saying two prices. Which one should I come in at? Now, those are things that are not tied to dollar liquidity. It's structural issues that need to be fixed that will bring confidence to the investor. And so there are two parts, always two parts. And I mean, more glaringly, a lot has to do with confidence. Why? Because most people now, they're just buying dollar for dollar's sake. There's no confidence. So things that would support and bring back confidence to the Naira, and then also build what's it called? GDP, production, right? Ease of doing business, security, transport. It's a lot of work, but we need to start as a first, and we just need to start.
Right. All our messages are waiting, so we just go straight to them as we come to the end of the conversation, Business Express this morning. So Benga Kamu leaves us with a message. Do the BDCs not undercut the market and sabotage the efforts of the CBN to stabilize the Naira? Further, where do they source their forex from? And we know they are conduit for corrupt money. Benga's thought. A quick one on that one.
So the BDCs are regulated by the central bank. All things being equal, I don't know why they are trying to publish a different price, because for all things being equal, they should not be selling more than a certain amount above the official price. So the funniest thing is that this thing that they're asking for, you have to watch how it will play out, right? Because there's some regulation around how they should be pricing. So we have to see how it will play out.
Next comes in Fine Oluboroko this morning, and it goes all about my take is that we are a dollarized economy, whether we like it or not, whether Ola like it or not. Major schools and real estates receive payments in dollars in Nigeria. Perhaps we should just adopt the dollar as our national currency. So we're having a referendum already. Tayo's message comes up with this one saying, we've not adopted dollars formally yet. Its influence in our economy is heavy. I wonder what will happen if we make it official. Tayo's thoughts. And then it goes on, I guess Blinken, the Secretary of State and co would be making less visits to Nigeria because we are not in control. That confidence in the Naira is from top, not the base of the economy. Final message this morning, Ola. Well, I want to say thank you to our special guest and resource person this morning, Oladele. She's the Chief Financial Advisor, founder of the Money with Club, and I found out how she, what made her found the club. And it's looking like I've got some people in some places, my adopted uncle, whose zeros are adding up very well, who I would like you to be manage his portfolio. But thank you. Do have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
All right, that's the show. Stay tuned. We'll